And as the 10 nights have now entered, the last 10 nights, this hadith specifically is one that we should pay close attention to. وعن عائشة رضي الله عنها قالت كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا دخل العشر أحيا الليل وأيقظ أهله وشد المئزر. This is a hadith that is Sahih in Bukhari and Muttafaq alayh, one of the highest levels of authenticity for the ahadith. I know you heard this already. You heard this yesterday, you heard the day before. But we repeat it because there's so many fruits in this hadith that we take from it that every day we need more time to talk about it, subhanAllah, right? This hadith translates to, our mother Aisha radiallahu anha, she said that our beloved Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam, when the last 10 nights enter, he used to tighten his belt on his waist, meaning he's getting serious, right? And then he would wake his family up with him, and he would bring life to the night. Ahya al-layl. He gave life fully to the night as if it's what? During the daytime. This is important for us to pay attention to. We're going to cover 3 important things today that we should keep with us during these last 10 nights, as we're only in the first night. Today's the second night, inshallah. So please keep this in mind and try to apply this to your night, to each day during your worships. The first thing, Salat al-Tahajjud, Qiyam al-Layl. There is no act of worship that is more dear to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than Qiyam al-Layl, along with the Siyam, طبعا. Why? Because how difficult is it for you to wake up in the middle of the night to pray extra nafila, a prayer that's not required, right? It's extremely difficult on people to wake up for Fajr, let alone to wake up before Fajr to pray Tahajjud, Qiyam al-Layl. So for that reason, Allah talks and mentions several things about how important this act of worship is and why we should all be getting into it. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Surah Al-Isra, Allah says, وَمِنَ اللَّيْلِ فَتَهَجَّدَ بِهِ نَافِلَةً لَكَ عَسَىٰ أَن يَبْعَثَكَ رَبُّكَ مَقَامًا مَحْمُودًا. Allah says, in the last third of the night, right? Wake up and pray Qiyamul Layl. Spend it in worship, right? So that Allah will raise your ranks to a high level. Allah says this in Surah Al-Isra. In fact, this act of worship is so dear that it was fard on our beloved Prophet ﷺ. It was required for him. He had to do Qiyamul Layl. Not for us though, right? This is how dear it was to him. And the only times that he would miss Qiyamul Layl was if he was feeling ill. And it would be known, people in Medina would know, he's not praying Qiyamul Layl today. Usually we hear him, we see him. But he's not today, right? So people would recognize this. This is how important it was. The last third of the night, there's a hadith that mentions that Allah comes down to the lowest of the heavens, right? And He starts to call on His slaves. He says, who is worshiping me? Whatever you want, I'm here to accept it. And this is a Sahih hadith. Just to show you the importance of waking up the last third of the night. This is maybe an hour, 2 hours before Fajr, which is what we do here. This is something that you should implement even outside of Ramadan. Not just inside Ramadan. It's an act of worship that if you truly want to get closer to your Lord, this is what you have to do. Because this is going to make the difference between showing Allah that you are devoted to Him or if you're devoted to the dunya. If you cannot lift your blanket to pray 2 rak'at, I'm not asking you to pray 16 rak'ah, like we do here, or the al-haram, right? We're asking you to wake up and pray 2 rak'at. Even if it's Qul Allahu Ahad, Qul A'udhu Birabbin Nas. Do not underestimate it. Wake up before the adhan of Fajr, pray 2 rak'at, make dua, and inshallah with that intention, Allah is going to reward you for that and accept that dua. There's another ayah. In Surah Al-Furqan, Allah talks about a very special group of people that not everyone can be a part of, but He mentions exactly what the requirements are to be amongst these people, and if you do these requirements, you shall be amongst them on the Day of Judgment. And they're none other than عباد الرحمن. Allah says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَعِبَادُ الرَّحْمَنِ الَّذِينَ يَمْشُونَ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ هَوْنًا وَإِذَا خَاطَبَهُمُ الْجَاهِلُونَ قَالُوا سَلَامًا وَالَّذِينَ يَبِيتُونَ لِرَبِّهِمْ سُجَّدًا وَقِيَامًا. He says, one of the traits of these people, they're the ones who they spend their nights in worship, praying tahajjud and making dua. It's specific. If you want to be amongst a special group of people, this is one of the requirements, right? So we all strive to be that. And in a special hadith narrated, this is when Rasulullah entered Medina after he left Mecca, and he gave his special inauguration speech, right? And he said, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يا أيها الناس أفشلوا السلام وأطعموا الطعام وصلوا الأرحام وصلوا بالليل والناس نيام تدخلوا الجنة بسلام. He said, simple, and it's very famous because it's things that are not necessarily only Islamic aligned, they are just basic character. He said, spread peace and blessings to those around you, and feed the needy, feed the poor. Okay, great. And he said, reconnect your ties with your family. Okay, great. But then this last part is very important. He said, pray at night while the people are sleeping. My brothers and sisters, this is mentioned several times in the ayat of Allah, in the Quran, and it's mentioned several times in the hadith. And had Allah not brought down the normal 5 daily prayers to us, originally this tahajjud would have been fard on us. Originally it was because this was around before the 5 daily prayers. This is how important it is. So if you truly want to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to your Lord, the one who created you, and you want to make a difference, wake up in the last third of the night and pray 2 rak'at. That's all. 2 rak'at, make some dua, and that's it. Wallahi, if you can do that, you'll find the barakah in your life completely full. You'll find your life way different. Because Allah promises you that if you do this, He's going to give you barakah in your life, right? The second point, if you have not engaged with the Quran in the first 20 days, now is the time to do so. Now is the time for you to do so. Allah says in Surah Al-Isra also, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, He says, أقم الصلاة لدلوك الشمس إلى غسق الليل وقرآن الفجر إن قرآن الفجر كان مشهودا. He says, raise in prayer at night and read Quran all the way to the Fajr Salah, right? Because indeed, the Quran that's recited in the last third of the night in the Fajr time is what witnessed and recorded. There's no more special time for you to recite the Quran than during this last third of the night. So not only should you pray, but naturally connect with it what? Quran. Recite, read Quran. Reconnect yourself with the Holy Book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Another hadith, and this is something that should give you motivation. They said, وعن عبد الله بن عمرو قال رسول صلى الله عليه وسلم من قام بعشر آيات لم يكتب من الغافلين. Right? This is the first part. For someone who just what? Read only 10 verses, he will not be written amongst the ghafilin, which is what we call the like the negligent people, right? Just 10 verses. That's it. Read 10 verses. Al-Fatiha, Surah Al-Ikhlas, was-Salat. MashaAllah, you're done. You did it. That's simple, right? Then he continued and he said, وَمَنْ قَامَ بِمِئَةِ آيَةٍ كُتِبَ مِنَ الْقَانِتِينَ. And for the one who reads 100 verses, he'll be recorded amongst the ones who are obedient to God. And 100 verses is not much. You guys, I know it might sound like it's a lot. Wallahi, Surah Al-Fatiha, Ayat Al-Kursi, Ikhlas, Surah Al-Falaq, Surah Al-Nas, khalas wasalta, yani, very close, That's not a lot, 100 verses. That's maybe a 4, 5, 6 rak'at, right? And then he continued and said, and this one is a bigger goal, وَمَنْ قَامَ بِأَلْفِ آيَةٍ كُتِبَ مِنَ الْمُقَنْطَرِينَ. Right? And for the one who read 1,000 ayat, he'll be amongst those who receive huge rewards. Just so you can get an idea, 1,000 ayat, the last 2 ajza of the Quran, Juz' Amma, right? And Juz' Tabarak, they equal 1,000 verses. So if you just read 2 Juz', you're amongst those people. And not just the people that are rewarded, but you are seen in the eyes of Allah as someone who excelled way beyond what He asked for. Just for reading 2 ajza, in one night. And if you just read 10 verses, Allah keeps you away from those who are negligent. Allah's not asking from a lot from you, but what He wants you to do is to gain the self-obedience and to gain the the responsibility, I guess you can say, to wake up in the middle of the night and just pray 2 rak'at to Him, for Him, and only for Him. That's what He wants to see from you. And the last point I'm going to leave you guys with is forgiveness. There's a very special hadith in which Angel Jibreel came down to the Prophet ﷺ as he was stepping onto his minbar to speak. And no one heard him, but the Rasul said, Ameen, Ameen, Ameen 3 times. And he was asked, what is he saying that for? And he said, Angel Jibreel came down to me and told me, for anyone that allows Ramadan to pass without them having gotten their sins completely forgiven, may they be amongst the losers completely. Can you imagine? It's the month of forgiveness, right? Allahumma innaka afuun kareemun tuhibbul afwa afu anna. That's the most famous dua that we want to be saying these last 10 nights. And it's asking for exactly that.